Woodley with a Jake Paul fight, Jorge Masvidal has been beefing with Jake Paul. In an interview with ESPN, when asked about Jake Paul, this is what he had to say.
Are you gonna fight Jake Paul?
I'm gonna beat up all the Pauls. If they put money in my pocket, that Logan Paul dude, Jake Paul dude, the whoever Paul dudes, if they put money in my pocket, of course I'd like to break some Disney characters' faces. I've been fighting men that've been training since 7, 8 years old to do the same thing to me that I want to do to them. Fighting guys like that's a bonus, man. That's all I can say. They can take it however they want, but it's a bonus.
It seemed like he took, your comments. You were just giving your prediction of the fight, and he kind of took it a little bit personally.
He's salty, man. He's a big fan of mine, big groupie. Always DMing me, used to DM me, and then got salty when I said, "This is what I think." Woodley's my boy. I've known Woodley 13, 14 years, almost my whole career. This is Paul kid, bro. He thinks we were friends because I gave him some advice in the Banashman fight. Get the fuck out of here, bro. I'll slap you and whoever you want, bro. I'm a fighter. Of course you're gonna get offended. He wanted that fighter up. See, the fighters acknowledge me. No. I'm still rocking with my boy Woodley, though he lost,
Do you think that fight could be realistic, you and Jake? The UFC would have to kind of sign off on that, though, right?
The UFC will have to sign up, but nothing's impossible, I mean, Dana doesn't like those guys, and Dana knows I go in there and put a hurting on those kids, so maybe he does send the assassin.
Jake Paul in a podcast, he exposed Masvidal for not knowing how to type properly.
The most recent one is Masvidal and I, literally in the DMs, just like going at each other. He can't type, by the way.
Really?
Like I want to show you. Like
see
you
it.
legit can't type. It's the weirdest thing. I said, bro, you need to get a grammar book because all this fighting's fucking your shit up.
And that's Jorge Masvidal, 36-year-old fighter out of the UFC.
I fight because I love it, men. Money ain't shit. I got tons of it. 2 spaces, period. I fight so I can break, he spelled break wrong, fools' faces and enjoy the ride. 2 spaces, period. You know you could ever see in Chage. Chage. I think he was drunk when he was...
He's probably just
Jake Paul then went to explain his beef with Dana White and how it got personal.
He and I just can't stop seeming to talk about each other, and it happens on this fucking podcast.
Is that
for the
trolling
most
to you?
part? It's trolling. It's not him and I is a little bit more personal now because he's trying to discredit everything that I'm doing, saying that my fights are rigged. Because he looks bad. He's trying to bully everyone in the fight game, and I'm the only person with a big platform that's speaking out against him because I'm the only one who doesn't give a shit. All of his fighters have to say, yes, Dad, like, we're sorry. Like, please let me fight. Please pay me. I'm the only fighter right now that doesn't give a fuck and is going right at him. And so he has to do everything he can to discredit me. A month before the Tyron fight, he's like, Tyron Woodley, he still got it. He still got it. And then he cuts him and is like, nah, he's doing fake fights.
the 40. Okay.
He sucks. He's old. Jake's not fighting people in his weight class. Like,
Dan Addy in an interview gave his thoughts on Tyron Woodley losing to Jake Paul. This is what he had to say.
I wish it was as complicated as that. I think you're doing him too many favors there. I think Jake Paul's not very good. And I think he did what he could to minimize the damage that he would take from Woodley in the early rounds and then played a smart game throughout the later rounds. And I think he knew that was the way to beat Woodley, which is why he accepted the fight. And I think Tyron Woodley was being himself. How many fights have the fans been booing in the 3rd, 4th and 5th round? He hangs back, he waits because he's got 10 punches in his pocket. And if he throws any more than that, he's blowing out of his arse. Like, that's the reality of it. He was always going to be gun shy because he's more afraid of getting tired and getting embarrassed by a YouTuber. Like, that was exactly what I expected to happen. And the reason I'm annoyed about it is because he validated exactly what I thought was going to happen. And I expected more from him. Like, dude, he's like, you're nearly 40. Like, your rap game's not going anywhere. Your MMA career's done. Like, you've got a guy in front of you that's been trashing your mum, that's been talking a whole heap of nonsense for how many months, and you've got 8 rounds to punch him in the face, and you already half punch him through the ropes, and then you don't put your foot on the gas because you're afraid of being vulnerable. That just looks weak to me. It looks weak, and it wastes people's money. And I love people. I love all these weird, wonderful fights, but that's when it runs out of steam. Like that's when the fire burns out, is when people tune in and they see that shit show and they go, oh, I won't get it next time because I'll expect the same thing. I think what's even worse is that Woodley was there to win and he didn't try. and that must burn him. That was burning him in the post-fight interview. Like, he couldn't barely contain himself without calling him out before he'd finished his interview. It's like, dude, you've missed your opportunity. Shut the fuck up and sit down and go and find something else to do, because you've just had your opportunity and it passed you by. And Jake Paul, fair play to him, because he is playing the game. He is mugging off the MMA world left, right, and center, and he's raising some really interesting topics about fighter pay. So I'm finding myself more and more a Jake Paul convert by the day. I still don't think he's a very good boxer, though.
Michael Bisping came out in a video saying that Darren Till tore his ACL 10 weeks before the fight.
In terms of him, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here because Darren hasn't said this, but it's going to come out, and I'm going to say it, and maybe I'm breaking guy code by doing it. But when I went into the bathroom with him Saturday afternoon and I was talking to him, he said, Mike, it's not an excuse. He said, but he tore his ACL 10 weeks ago. 10 weeks before that fight happened, Darren tore his ACL. And that isn't a lie, he said, because he was seeing all kind of doctors and even doctors in America, and they were injecting him with, things that were legal, of course, but to try and help improve the recovery process. And Darren, being the warrior that he is, and obviously being confident, let's be honest, and confidence can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and unfortunately in that situation kind of became his worst enemy. The smart, rational decision would have been not to fight. But of course he pulled out of the Vettori fight with a broken collarbone. He didn't want to do that again. And the man has to fight. The man has to earn money as well. And he believed in himself, even though he was injured. And by the way, I'm not taking away from Derek Brunson's performance. Derek Brunson apparently went in with damaged ribs as well. That's the thing about mixed martial arts. We often go in there with an injury. It's very rare that a fighter goes in there 100%. It does happen.